In this video, I'm fishing with an underwater camera 600 feet deep, and everything that could go wrong while fishing went wrong. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. We started off our afternoon making the run out of Hillsboro Inlet. Once we got out of this inlet, we made about a 5-mile run south to Fort Lauderdale, where we had marked this spot weeks ago. Once we got to this spot, it was time to start setting up our rig. So the first thing we needed here was the Go Fish Cam, and this is the underwater camera. Once we set that up with the lights, and lights are extremely important down here just because it is so dark when you're 600 feet deep. Once we rig all that up, I then attached the hooks and the weight, and on this day we were using a 5-pound weight. Next thing I do is I take these full squids and cut them into 3 small pieces. And when you're deep dropping, squid's like the best bait because it stays on the hooks the best. Once I cut this squid into 3 small pieces, all I'm gonna do is take one of these smaller pieces and rig them right onto the hook. And there's no fancy way of doing this. As long as the squid's nice and tight on the hook, you're good to go. Rigging up your deep drop rig is really basic. Finding the spot is the hardest part about deep dropping. So once the rig was all set, my dad positioned us on this spot, and now it's time to turn on the most important thing, the underwater camera. So all I'm gonna do with this underwater camera is press the red button, and then it's ready to go. And these underwater cameras actually have a built-in light, which is really nice because the more light you have when you're 600 feet deep, the better it is. Once everything was ready to go, it's now time to put the rig into water. So I loosened the drag on the electric reel, and now it's time to start making our way down 600 feet deep. So we switch over to our underwater camera point of view, and on this first drop there was fish everywhere, but on the next drop, everything that could go wrong went wrong on that next drop. We will now see you guys 600 feet deep. So I fast forwarded, and now we're at the bottom, and as you guys can see, it is pitch black down here. So it took us a couple of seconds before that first fish showed up. You guys can now see the first fish has appeared, and he got really aggressive. He hit our bottom bait right off the start, and it looks like we had him here, but we didn't. On this day, our hooks were way too big. We actually forgot our other deep drop rig at the dock, which really hurt us because on this day, for some reason, we couldn't get any of these fish to stay on the hook. This fish took off after about 20 seconds of trying to rob our squid. But then about 5 seconds later, he came back around and tried again robbing that bottom squid. And like I said, this is why it's so important to use squid, because squid is such a tough bait, it usually never falls off our hooks. Then this fish came back around, and this is the worst part about having a camera on your rig. You fish for 5 hours, and then you come home to edit this video, and you just see how many fish you missed. We missed over 30 fish on this day, and it was a long, hot, sweaty fishing day, and to know that we missed this many fish is really painful to watch. It looks like we had our first fish here hooked, and I don't know how he got off the hook, but once I felt him, I started bringing him off the bottom, and then he came right off the hook. And that's how we ended this first drop. Now it's time for drop number 2, and if you think this drop was bad, just wait until you see what happened on drop number 2. So we brought the rig back up to the boat, and now it's time to reposition back on this spot. So once I got the rig back to the boat, I cut up some squid again, and then I reset with some brand new squid. Once the squid was ready to go, I turned back on the underwater camera, and then I loosened the drag on the electric reel, and now it's time to put the rig back in the water. And let me know in the comments down below where you guys would want to see us drop this underwater camera next. Once I put this weight in the water, we flipped over to our underwater camera point of view, and now we'll see you guys 600 feet deep. We are now about 10 seconds off the bottom, and again, it's pitch black down here. And on this drop, we were about 650 feet deep. So once we hit bottom, it took us a couple of seconds again before the first fish showed up, and this fish was a giant. Now you guys see that fish at the bottom right, but watch the top left of the screen. A giant tilefish came up and hit our underwater camera. Now we were in the action, so we had that one fish on the bottom, we had that giant on the top left, so we just waited a little longer down here, and then one of these tilefish came back around. This one tilefish then shows up, and this was a nice 5 to 8 pound fish. It looks like we had him here, and then he spit the squid right out of his mouth. And these hooks obviously were just way too big. And sadly, we left the rest of our tackle bag at the dock, which really costed us a bunch of fish on this day. Another giant fish came back around, and it looks like we hooked him here, and then he was able to get right off the hook. And let me tell you, on this day, it felt like these fish knew the camera was rolling, because we were just getting trolled. Then the one giant tilefish came up and swallowed the middle squid, and it looks like we had this fish. As you guys can see, he was going nuts. So we started bringing this fish up, and it looks like everything was going right. This fish swallowed the hook, so it looks like we had him here until this happened. So let me put this into perspective for you guys. We're about 5 hours into fishing. We have caught no fish today, and then we have this fish halfway off the bottom, a nice sized tilefish, and he did some weird move and got right off the hook. I don't know how he did that, but it might have been the most aggravating thing I have ever experienced while fishing. This is how we ended our fishing trip. It was a really painful ending, and sadly the sun was setting, so it was time to call it a day. We hope you guys enjoyed this fishing video, and we hope to see you in the next Barjack's Family Fishing video.